Hello and welcome to this video. My name is Christy and I go by Imaginary Rat on all social media. And today I thought that I would talk a bit about a few ways to get better at art. And first I'd just like to point out that while I have created a few YouTube videos before where I have been talking, I am really not used to it, and I, along with my channel, I'm a work in progress, and if I do this a lot, I'm bound to get better at it eventually. But just bear with me and my mistakes. So I'm an artist. I like to do animal arts, and I've been doing it for a while now. And I guess these are like my ways that I use a lot to improve, and I hope you'll find them helpful. Okay, so my first point is quite a simple one, and that's just to practice. And how I do it, I usually draw animals, so I like to, practice animals. And I will practice, everything has a structure, and you can figure out the structure of everything. So what I do is I've done a couple of anatomy studies and anatomy practices, and I will basically just copy photo references of animals and drawings of animal skeletons. And I have also done some practices where I've basically drawn out an animal and I've drawn a bunch of lines over it to try to figure out the proportions of that animal. And if you do this a lot, you will, remember it. And something to add to make this practice even more effective is to draw from imagination. So put whatever you're looking at aside and just draw as you remember it. So what that basically does is that it forces you to remember it so that it will actually stick in your head. And also you will understand what kind of doesn't work for you. Like, for instance, let's say I'm practicing foxes and I realize that, the hind legs, when I practice it without reference, I realize that the hind legs look very off. Then I can move on to practicing hind legs. So just copy things. Copy from photo reference, copy other people's artwork, but don't share it. And copy from reality is the best source. And then just draw what you just drew, basically. My second point is to carry a sketchbook and fill it. So this ties together a bit with my first point, and it's going to tie together in basically everything. But a sketchbook is essential. So just carry it with you and draw things from your life, draw people around you, ask your friends to pose for you perhaps. And I find that usually people are quite willing to sit and have you draw them. And just, draw things around you. I sat in class once and I just drew basically a desk in front of me, and plants and houses, anything. So that's something that's really great with a sketchbook. You can just draw things around you, and what that will do is that it will just build your visual library of things. And another thing that's really great with carrying a sketchbook is that you can just draw scrap ideas. Like, you're bound to get a bunch of ideas during the day, right? So just draw them in your sketchbook, and then you have them for later, and when you've practiced the things that are included into your idea, you can create a stunning piece from it. And you can do like a realism challenge and try to draw something that you see as realistically as possible, or you do an experimental challenge where you just draw something based on what you see. Let's say you're seeing a chair and try to create a creature out of it or something. Just experiment. Have fun with your sketchbook. I have multiple sketchbooks and I carry them with me at like different times. And I have one that's small. It's A5 format, and that's basically like my drafting sketchbook. And I kind of use it I have like memory notes in it, so I can like see something that I find interesting. In one case, I was thinking a lot about how my environments and backgrounds were lacking, So I would just look at things around me, and if I didn't have time to sketch them, because I ride a bus to school every day, and then you don't really have the time to, you can't see something and draw it as realistically as possible because it's flashed by in like a second. So I'll just create a memory note for myself that, oh, this tree had some stray leaves growing from its trunk. Okay, and I see wildlife around it, birds and perhaps squirrels. I don't actually remember. And then I just have that memory note for myself that I can then use in my later pieces, because my problem was that I didn't really know what to include into my environments. So carry a sketchbook, and I wouldn't say try to fill it as quickly as possible, because that's not a good goal, because you can do that so easily, like effortlessly just doodle something that has no significance and that you won't learn anything from. But try to draw something in its everyday that you will actually learn something from, and that's how you're gonna fill your sketchbook. And the more sketchbooks you fill, the better. So carry a sketchbook, carry many sketchbooks if you want to, and do whatever you want with it. And there are so many things you can do. Draw your non-dominant hand is another thing you can do. So there are so many ways to fill up your sketchbook. So, but the practice of carrying a sketchbook, that's the essential thing. Always carry a sketchbook. To me, it's a bad day if I accidentally leave my sketchbook at home. Then I just know that I'm gonna have a bad day. So yeah, carry a sketchbook. Remember that. So my third point is, and I've already been onto this a bit, and that's draw every day. Create a routine to draw every day, and it doesn't have to be anything fancy. It doesn't have to be a finished piece. It doesn't even have to be, it would be good if it's a finished sketch, but I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be that either. And it doesn't have to, it doesn't even have to take up that much time. You can do it in, create a sketch in, 20 minutes. And this is essential because, to me at least, I feel rusty if I haven't drawn in 2 days, or in 1 day even. So it's just to keep your hand moving, basically, so that you don't forget everything that you have practiced. And if you practice a lot, it's gonna be a lot of new information circling around in your mind. So just sketching every day will help having that sink in a bit, I believe. And if you do it every day, you're bound to get some ideas from it and stuff like that. And for me personally, it's been a bit hard to keep up with a routine, or it was in the beginning, because I was lazy. Sure, I get home quite late from school and stuff, and I am quite tired. I live in Sweden, and right now it's winter, so the sun goes down at 3 o'clock, basically, and I go down with the sun, so I am so tired when it's dark outside, and that would be my excuse for not drawing. Oh no, I'm so tired, I don't want to do anything but just lay here and do nothing. But just commit to doing something every day. And if you're like me and you have a bit of a hard time creating a routine for yourself, rewards is a great way to do that. So I've heard of some people, they will, draw a bit, and then they will, play video games and use that as their reward for you sketching, or watch some TV series or a film or whatever. To me, for a while, it was candy. I'm not even gonna joke. It was. I trained myself like a dog owner would train their dog. So yeah. I use that as motivation. So yeah, just create a routine, and it's not going to be anything fancy every day. And even if you're working on a painting, or even if I'm working on a painting, I still want to, you know, sketch something so that I have, you know, created the lines, because painting can be so different. So yeah, that's another piece of advice that I have. And I think everyone has probably heard this a lot, just, you know, draw every day. But I don't think that people hear enough that it doesn't have to be anything fancy at all. It's just to do that and keep your hand moving. That's the idea. So you don't have to draw anything new every day, you don't have to start any new pieces every day, it's just draw something every day. My fourth and last point is ask for critique. And basically, people do have this misconception that critique has to be negative, but that's not true, because good critique should point out both the positive and negative things about your piece. And everyone don't actually know how to do this in a good way, because giving critique is like an art form of its own, honestly. And but yeah, ask for critique, and ask your friends for critique, ask other artists for critique, ask your peers for critique, ask anyone for critique. And another thing, like another misconception that I've seen a lot, is that some people believe that someone who is not an artist can't critique you because their opinions aren't valid or something like that. But here's the truth. Almost everyone has eyes, and almost everyone knows what the world looks like around them. So anyone can actually, you know, tell you that you've done something wrong in your piece. If they can see that something is up, maybe they can't point out exactly what, like your artist peers could. But if they can tell that something is wrong with your piece, something is wrong with your piece. So take that into consideration. I have received so much helpful critique from friends and artists alike, and I've grown so much from it. So ask for critique. And something to keep in mind when asking for critique is that everyone are not necessarily good at giving critiques. So sometimes it may come across as rude or mean. And I know when I was younger, because I've been posting art online since I was 11, and that's not a very good age, I'd say, because I took things super personally and I could not take critique. I'd get so upset, and while I wouldn't really express that to the person who gave me the critique, I'd, you know, be salty for myself and be so mad. Even if they did it in like the most polite way possible, I couldn't take it. But I've learned recently like how to take it, and the trick is to, you know, not take things very personally, because even though art is a very personal thing, they are evaluating your piece, not you. And a few tips to, you know, ask for critique is it's very good to, you know, ask for something specific, because then you will get a clearer answer than if you would, you know, just show them the piece and ask them what do you think of it. Even, like, you can do that too, of course. And something to, another thing is, like, don't ever defend your piece. Like, if someone gives you the worst critique ever and it comes across really mean and they point out, like, everything as if you did everything wrong, I don't know, that's not supposed to happen, actually. That's a horrible example of a critique, but that could happen. Like, whatever you do, don't defend your piece, because first off, that person doesn't actually care. And that's the harsh truth. And secondly, it makes you come across as a bit, I guess you could say, ignorant, and perhaps a bit ungrateful, because that's the thing to always be grateful for critique, because it's like the most generous thing someone can do for you as an artist. Like, you know, taking the time to look at your piece and evaluate it and give you feedback, even if it comes across as a bit rude and mean. And that's, I've seen so many examples of critique coming off as rude because they have, I guess, not really, I don't know, there is like a certain practice of critique that you can use, basically pointing out something good, like overall the good things about the piece first, then pointing out some negatives, and if it's a beginner artist you don't point out, you know, everything, because that's rude and that's not going to help them. And then you give them, you know, something more positive, and that's like the basic formula for creating or for giving good critique. But everyone doesn't, everyone haven't learned this, even if they are really great at what they do and they understand it well. They haven't learned this formula, and then they can come across as a bit rude, even if they do not intend to, and even if they, you know, have their best intentions. If they don't formulate their sentences well, they may come across as rude. And then there are some people who are rude, but even if they are rude, do not be rude back ever. Just thank them for your time. And here's the thing. Take every piece of critique with a grain of salt, because like part of the critique will always be subjective. And if it's your taste against someone else's, there is basically nothing to, you know, argue over in a way. And so just, you know, thank them for their advice, and then you don't necessarily have to incorporate it into your piece. So keep that in mind. You don't have to do everything that people tell you to do with something, and just, you know, say thanks, and then you can just filter a bunch of stuff out. And even that really mean critique may have something, you know, to give you. So yeah, ask for critique, and ask from everyone and anyone, and yeah, that's my last point actually. So I hope this was helpful to people, and this is, again, I have not done, I think this is like the first video of its kind. I haven't really done this kind of thing before, so I hope it was okay. And if you want more of these, just like let me know. And if you have anything additional, like any of your own advice, like any way that you practice to become better, or anything that you do to become a better artist, just like let me know. I'd love to know. So I guess I'll see you in the next one. And if you like, oh, another thing, if you have any suggestions for any kinds of videos, just like let me know that too. I'm like super open to ideas and stuff. So yeah, now I'm out. See you all.